Delegate Murphy, as a representative in the Virginia General Assembly, has worked tirelessly on this issue. And as many of you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We know that women in particular are at much, much, much greater risk of being killed in a domestic violence situation when a firearm is introduced into that situation by either party. The women die at 5 times, are 5 times more likely to die than other women in other countries in America because of the intersection and the nexus of firearms. In the most recent year that data was available, 2014, well over 100 women died in intimate partner family homicides. That's unacceptable, and the majority of those were with a firearm. So I'm happy to speak with Delegate Murphy. You recently passed legislation in 2016. The legislation prohibits domestic abusers who are subject to a protective order from possessing firearms. It is an issue that is going to have an impact and going to save lives. Congratulations and thank you. Can you tell us about how you came to focus on this issue and the deadly nexus of access to guns and firearms, and talk about the process of the legislation and its success?
Well, thank you for letting me be here. I sort of have allergies today. I'd like to point out that in the back there we have my fellow delegate, Jennifer Boysko, who also Jennifer Wexton. Former Congressman Chet Edwards here, but he's here. My brother was murdered. He was murdered when 2 gunmen walked into his place of business, robbed him, and that wasn't enough. They shot him, and that was the end of that. He had 5 children and a wonderful life. And I can tell you that nothing staggering happens quite the way when someone calls you on the phone and says, your brother's dead. He was murdered. You don't put that away someplace. You don't get over it. For me, the whole issue of preventing gun violence is a real focus for my life. I've seen too many women, I've met so many women who are threatened with guns in domestic abuse cases. So I've worked very hard, and of course, being very naive when I was elected to the House of Delegates, I thought I could go in and instantly offer a bill, and it would be so logical that they would instantly pass it. Well, much to my surprise, they didn't think that taking guns away from repeat violent domestic abusers who had been convicted twice made any sense. So I went over to some of the members on the Militia and Police Committee and I asked, what bill will make sense to you? I want to know. Whatever it is that we need to change, I'm willing to change it. You need to tell me what you will accept. And I worked on this for an entire session over the summer and finally got one member to say, we will not allow you to pass a bill that takes a gun away from anybody for a misdemeanor. And on that issue, we were able to get a bill passed that then made violent domestic abuse conviction on the second time a felony, which automatically takes the gun out of the home and saves lives. We were also able to get a bill as part of the agreement with Terry McAuliffe and all of the work that he and Mark Herring did to get a bill passed that takes guns out of the homes of people who are under a protective order. The reason that this was important was because they couldn't carry a gun, but they could still possess the gun. What good did that do? So we used a little common sense and threw in there that those guns had to be taken out of the home. He had to drop them off give them to a neighbor, give them to a friend. This is a huge issue. Women are dying every day, or they're staying in horrible domestic abuse situations because they're fearful that their husband or partner will shoot them. It's a method of intimidation, and we had to do something about it, and we did. And we work on this, and we'll have some more bills for you next year. And these were a good first step. So you've got me there. I'm not ever going to give up on this issue. Thank you.
Senator Davis, we have all been so impressed and have to thank you for your national leadership on women's equality and helping to elevate women leaders across the country. We're just honored and grateful for your leadership. You wrote a powerful essay last year about a vote on the gun bill you took, and you said that vote haunts you, and I think that many of us would like to learn a little bit more about that experience and your perspective on that, and frankly, how you've come to this issue. And we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Lori. I'm very happy and proud to be here with this amazing group of women today and the leadership that each of them has shown on what can be a very challenging issue, particularly those who are in elected office. I went into my gubernatorial race in 2014, proudly boasting an F rating from the NRA. I had a history of having fought very, very hard in my city of Fort Worth for background checks at gun shows, and when I couldn't get my way there, at the very least fighting for us to no longer host gun shows in our city facilities because that background loophole exists. When I was in the state senate, I was a crucial vote keeping guns on campus law from passing. It did ultimately pass in 2015 when I was no longer in the Texas Senate, and I was so committed to it that I literally almost missed my youngest daughter's college graduation because my absence from the Senate floor would have meant that that bill would go through. I was fortunate that one of my Republican colleagues who favored the passage of guns on campus traded votes with me that day so that I could go and be with my daughter for her graduation. And I tell you that just so you'll understand how committed I am to this issue, and yet. And the "and yet" is what I wrote this essay about. In my gubernatorial race, one of the issues that was percolating, and it was a law that we knew was probably going to advance, a bill would advance in the 2015 legislative session, was a question on the open carry of handguns in our state. We already had an open carry for long guns that had been on the books for a very long time. And in an effort to remove what was going to be an incredibly volatile issue, this being the issue, which I worried was going to overshadow our conversation about restoring education funding, women's access to health care, Medicaid expansion, I took a qualified position on that bill. The qualified position that I took was this. Yes, we can have open carry, but everyone gets to say no. Municipalities can say no. Hospitals, public and private universities, private property owners, everyone can say no. I knew, because I know the legislative process, that a bill like that would never come to the governor's desk. And if a bill didn't come to the governor's desk without all of those qualifiers on it, I would be free to veto it. But the problem with that, and in taking a qualified position like that, and yes, we did remove that from the conversation going forward in the gubernatorial race. The problem with it was that I missed an opportunity to have a conversation with voters about an issue that I could have played a pivotal role in educating voters on an issue that mattered, and in helping to move the needle in public opinion on the issue. I will never forget being greeted by some Moms Demand Action members at an event not long after I took that position on this bill. And the woman who greeted me with tears in her eyes because of the position I had taken on this bill is something that I will never forget. So the first thing I want to say is, I cannot stress enough how important the work of Moms Demand Action is, Congresswoman Gifford's organization is, the work that former Mayor Bloomberg has done on this issue, because behind every one of those organizations like the one that Lori represents, is cover for people who are running in states where this is a very difficult topic. Many people in my state still believe that Ann Richards lost her 1994 re-election to become governor for a second term because she vetoed the concealed carry bill in our state, of course, a bill that immediately passed into law when George Bush became our governor. So in states like Texas, where we know we are up against a very strong headwind on the question about gun rights and common sense solutions to gun violence, I'm so grateful that there are people like you, organizations like yours, that are out there, because politicians need that. We need to have your wind at our backs, and to know that when we do confront difficult issues like that, you're going to be there in as full force and as importantly as the NRA would be.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy Davis. That is a great segue for me to call on Pia. The politics of this issue has been, debated for years. I believe and genuinely believe that politicians, are evolving on this issue, and frankly, in recent years have come full circle. Many of us in this room have had personal experience with, for example, Senator Warner, who has, really moved quite far on this issue in his term, during his time in the Senate. How has the ARS PAC worked to elevate gun violence prevention nationally, and how do you see this impacting, the political landscape and the politics of this in elections in particular?
Yeah, 50-50. Yeah, right, and Gabby always says if we could only just get to 50-50 sort of the money and influence that each sort of side, if you will, and I hate that because I think the vast majority of us are together, not on the side on this issue, but the gun lobby and the gun violence prevention work, if we could sort of be 50-50, we in this room would be in a better place. There's been a lot of evolution from a lot of candidates, friends of ours, who are now comfortable talking about some aspects of this issue that they might not have been otherwise. And it was a little bit of like, let's all hold hands and step in this together that's happened in the last few years, which is totally fine.